3, 2, 1.
Welcome in. Life in the Red podcast. I just about called it the Husker Extra podcast, but I caught myself. It's the Life in the Red podcast. Old habits die hard. I'm Chris. There's Parker. There's Steve. It's hat day in the Lincoln Journal-Star sports department. So we're all wearing our hats today, even though we're in separate buildings, separate domiciles right now. It is 12:17 p.m. on Thursday, March 3rd. We're going a little early today. The sun is shining in. We're going to record you guys a podcast. We got a ton of stuff to talk about. Spring football is underway. We had the first press conference of the spring on Monday. We're going to talk a lot about that because we covered a lot of ground that day. We're going to talk hoops, winners of 2 in a row, 1 regular season game left. We're going to talk baseball, who is currently on a bus to Texas right now. They left at 5 a.m. They still got about 5 hours to go before they reach their destination. So that's
whenever you listen to this podcast, they will still be on the bus.
Yeah, exactly. As Will Bolt said yesterday, the game will test you. And then he kind of smiled. So yeah, let's get into it. We had the fire hose press conference on Monday. We talked to Scott Frost. We talked to Eric Shenander, Mark Whipple, Mickey Joseph, Bill Bush, Brian Applewhite. Who else am I forgetting?
Name them all.
Coach Sean Beckton.
Yep.
Name them all. Basically, everybody who's ever coached for Nebraska was at this press conference. Along with several players.
Talked to Nelson Barnes.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Adolph Lewandowski was there, back from the dead.
Is his name Adolph? I thought it was AJ.
AJ, I think it's AJ, but I think his first name's Adolph.
Okay.
He was history lesson. He was there. They dug up his corpse and brought him to the press conference.
That's good. That's
great.
Not offensive at all.
No, it's
offensive at all.
We'll lead it off with this. We had all these assistants there. Excuse me. We had all these assistants there Monday. And Sipple, you proposed this question before we started. Who is the most interesting assistant coach this year in your eyes? I'll lead it off because I already gave you guys my answer.
Lead it off. I want to hear what you say.
Lead it off.
I'm a lead off hitter. I'm a contact guy. I get on base.
Slap the ball down the line.
Yeah. I'm going Mark Whipple. And it's probably because I'm biased, but I haven't talked to him yet. But I love a dude that's like so like old and secure in what he's doing that he's just like, yeah, whatever. Like, I'll just come hang out. I'll tell you who took the first team snaps with the quarterback. Like, doesn't matter. I don't care. I just like that he seems so like, what's the word? I'm just so comfortable. Like, you can tell he's been doing it for a long time. Not that he doesn't take what he's doing seriously. He clearly does. And he's very good at it. But I think it's just fascinating to kind of watch him hold court. He'll lean back and cross his arms, and if he could, he'd probably kick his feet up on the table or on a footrest or something. Like, he's just totally at ease in this situation, which isn't always the case for guys that come to Nebraska for the first time. And there's 20 or 30 media members standing around you, hanging on your every word. So yeah, for me, it's Whipple. He's been doing it a long time. He's obviously got a big project, an important project in front of him this year. And so far, he just seems to handle it in a manner that just is fascinating to me with the way he's so relaxed about it.
Well, yeah, think about the magnitude of the situation. Think about, now, this is a guy that could be winding up his career.
He could be retired. He could be living in Arizona.
Yeah, think about what could happen if it goes really well. And now I don't know what Mark Whipple would say about what's defined his career, but he could have a very career-defining final stage of his career. If he would if Mark Whipple is the guy you point to as helping turn around Nebraska, we're talking about offense, but helping turn around the ship. I mean, he's been entrusted with the offense. Man, I mean, what a late career development that would be. Now, you could say, Parker, well, he already did that at Pitt. Yeah, but I would say doing it at Pitt is one thing. No disrespect to the program. Doing it in Nebraska is a little more than that.
Yeah,
Pitt didn't have 80 people at their spring press conference.
Yeah, I mean, it's probably part of the reason why he took the job, right? I mean, when he was asked why, he said pretty flatly, because it's Nebraska. One of the things you guys might find this interesting. I haven't read this anywhere yet, but one of the things that he was asked about, one of many things on Monday, was the process of so he came from Pitt, obviously, a lot of experience in the NFL, all of that. You've got Scott Frost in that offensive meeting room still. Brian Applewhite came from TCU and also has been a couple of other places. You have Mickey Joseph came from LSU. So the question was, ostensibly, you've got all of these different ideas. Like, how do you sort of sort through them? And Whipple was like, sort of to Baz's point about being confident in what you're doing. Whipple was like, well, what he said was, yeah, I mean, it's not like we're just throwing stuff against the wall. Like, it's proven it works. The stuff that we have, the stuff that we're installing, it works. You got to teach it to the kids. You got to run it right. But like, he basically was like, I've been doing this a long time. We're not reinventing the wheel. We're teaching kids stuff that works. And now any coach will tell you that. But I just think it's a really short timeline to try to put all of this together. Bunch of new coaches on offense from different places, some new terminology, a new play caller, a new quarterback, new players at virtually every position. Like, on paper, it seems like a long shot that it's just all gonna come together without much trouble and you'll be off and running and scoring 35 or 38 a game. But when you ask Whipple about that, he's just sort of like, why wouldn't it? Why wouldn't it work? Why can't we do it? So he had a lot of interesting things to say. Said overall, they're faster than they were at Pitt. That's a Pitt offense that scored 42 points a game and was third in the country in scoring last year. Said they have more than enough talent at quarterback.
He said that. That was interesting.
Yeah. It's very interesting because he's very can be straight to the point in terms of like his approach and what he wants to do. But he also he made this joke in December about how he must be too nice because at one time he had 7 quarterbacks in his room and none of them transferred. And he was like, yeah, I guess none of them wanted to leave because I just must be too nice of a guy or something like that. But you can tell, I've only, we've had 2 sort of extended discussions with him, and you can tell why guys like playing for him. I mean, he's very supportive and very complimentary of the Nebraska group so far, and just said he likes the attitude. He said they got big eyes and big ears and they're, eyes wide open kind of thing. They're doing all the right things, and it's going to be a big old experiment.
I love his approach. I just love his approach. You touched on it. Just it's so it feels like it puts guys at ease, right? Like, it feels like it puts he's obviously he's talking to us, but it feels like the way he approaches it puts his players to ease too. He makes them feel comfortable while they're learning this, which is probably going to be it is going to be a big part of this, trying to pick this up in such a short amount of time. But I'd love to watch him at a practice, because I think it would just be really interesting to watch. And I don't mean this as a slight or anything against anybody else, but I just think it's a different approach than what Mario Verduzco had, with this big test and everything else. It just feels like it's probably a breath of fresh air for a lot of those guys.
Well, I mean, here's the thing about him, and this is what we're talking about, is he does really project confidence.
Yeah.
And now Parker saw this, and I was probably a little more taken with it than Parker, but when he was in front of the Lincoln High School Coaches Association gathering a couple of weeks ago, I mean, what really occurs to you is that these guys operate on a much higher level than us. I mean, he's really good in that kind of setting. And his knowledge comes out, just the things he almost says offhandedly. You're like, oh God, yeah, he knows. This guy really knows what he's talking about. I really don't understand football like I probably should, at my age. But Baz, that's what you're getting at, and I think that's what Parker's getting in a way. He does project a lot of confidence, and I think he just knows a lot. I mean, think about his career. His career's been fascinating. If you go through what he's done, I mean, he was 2 times a head coach at UMass, 2 times a head coach. I mean, then he's been in the NFL with the Steelers and the Eagles and the Browns. I mean, he was a play caller at Miami. And then, of course, other places too. Arizona Wranglers. He was at Brown University where he graduated. So it's a very disparate, kind of strange vagabond road. He's traveled to Nebraska. Now he's at Nebraska. And what's this going to look like? I mean, could Whipple become a central figure in the resurgence and then become a big part of a program's rich history? It'd be I don't know if it'd be an incredible story, but it'd be a very, very interesting story.
Yeah. All right.
Maybe incredible.
Maybe.
I mean, in the context of how this team has performed over the last 3 years, it would be incredible. And now you're asking him to turn it around. From that sense, certainly.
Yeah. What if he doesn't? What if he orchestrates this?
That's just it. Like he's really got nothing to lose. Like if he doesn't, it's like, well, I had 1 foot in retirement anyway. I'll just go live in Arizona. It's fine. But if he does, oh boy, now you got that last kind of closing chapter on your career, and you're right off into the sunset. So yeah, that's you nailed it. It's just the confidence with which he operates that really just appeals to me, I think.
Yeah, I get that.
Simple.
Number 2 on the list.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Parker. Go ahead, Parker. Go.
Well, no, because I want to know who you think, and then I'll pick someone different.
Number 2 on the list. It's tough. I mean, because they're all pretty interesting hires in their own right. It's hard for me not to pick Mickey, and I'm not going to belabor the point. It's just simply, I say Mickey because of the way he's taken this kind of the fan base by storm. He's sort of this very, he's an appealing figure because he projects confidence. He's really well spoken. He tends to just fire you up, just listening to him in a press setting kind of fires you up. So he fires up the kids. What he says resonates with a lot of people. And yeah, I'd say he's the one who's, of all of them, that's taken the fan base by storm by far more than the others.
Is he more popular now than he was when he was playing here?
Yeah, that's a great question. I'd say yes. I think he only ended up. Yeah, I think he only ended up starting 9 games, maybe 11 in that range. I mean, he didn't nail down the starting job for 6 years like Adrian Martinez. He nailed it down for 9 or 10 games. So yeah, I would say he is. He gets a lot of mileage from what he did at LSU, which is pretty extraordinary.
Yeah.
It's interesting too with Mickey. I mean, you knew this, like you know this, but then when you see it in person, it just, the potential impact really hits home in terms of the recruiting front. I mean, especially with the way that Nebraska has struggled the last couple of cycles, at least, to recruit in the Omaha area and in general, in St. Louis and in Kansas City, like cities, metropolitan areas right in Nebraska's backyard that they have to get more out of. And when you've got Mickey recruiting in Omaha and in St. Louis and Bill Busch recruiting in Kansas City, it's sort of like, I know that gets talked about a lot, and it certainly doesn't go undercovered, but it will be very interesting to look back. Obviously, some of it's going to depend on coaching staff continuity and how quickly, if they have success and how quickly, and all of that. But like, if this all works, if this all ends up working with these guys, I just think the work that Mickey has already done and will continue to do on the recruiting trail is going to be a big part of the story too. And I just mentioned him, but I think you could make an argument for Brian Applewhite because of the position he's coaching and all of the guys and options that they have in that room to sort through. But I'll take Busch, Bill Busch, mostly because Busch and Whipple are the guys that are sort of in unprecedented spots as it pertains to Scott Frost, the head coach, right? Like, he's never turned the offense over to somebody, and he's been a play caller for a long time, and now he's handing those reins to Mickey. He's never designated a spot on his staff solely to special teams, and now he's doing that with Bill. And so those two, to me, are they're the most radically different from the structure that Scott's had in his organization in the now going into his 7th year as a head coach. And that matters a lot. And when you listen to Bill, like I think Baz, you were at the Bill Bush table, right?
Yeah.
Like you can I don't know if it's going to work. You know, the proof will have to be in the pudding, obviously. But like, if you come away with one thing listening to Bill, it's that that group is not going to be lacking for detailed knowledge. I mean, the attention to detail is, it's incredible, you know, and I don't know. It's hard for me to sit here and say like that Mike Dawson didn't do that, or that is an area they've lacked in or whatever. I don't know. I don't really know that. Mike Dawson is considered a good he's done good work on special teams in places he's been before, but like to have that person and now to actually be starting every morning with a special teams meeting and to actually start day one of spring ball with a special teams period. That's not an emphasis that's ever, no matter how much you got talked about last year, that's just not the way they operated. And so to have that and to really sort of sell out on that, and then to have a guy who it's his job, you know, I think he's probably going to have some say on the travel roster. I think the assistants largely will trust him to say who he needs in terms of, you know, starters or contributors or whatever to play on those units. I don't know. It's just sort of like Whipple. He projects a lot of confidence that it's going to work, and it's going to be interesting to see if they can actually carry that through and have it work.
Oh, you said something really important. I had 2 things. Now, you guys know this from being around football, but not everybody knows it. That special teams meeting to begin the day, and that special teams coach can have a huge impact on a program. And Bill Bush is very mindful of that. So he doesn't come into that meeting sleepy-eyed, half awake, thinking about, you know, something that happened at home. It's go time now at 6:59 a.m. or whatever they're doing, which I think is what it is.
They close the doors for the meeting room at 6:59. Yep.
Yeah. At 6:59, it's energy time. Yeah. He's charged up, and he wants his players to be. He tells a story about how he went to the Garth Brooks concert and had really good seats, like second row on the field, you know. And he tells a story about how he was there, and he and his wife got into it, you know, like with most of the rest of the crowd, but there was a couple that he didn't know that were sitting next to him in their 50s, and they just sat there. They sat there the whole time. Never showed any, just sat there like there was nothing going on. And Bill said, it's one thing to attend a meeting. It's another thing to be in it, be energized, be part of this. Don't just come in there and slump in your seat with your hood up, which I don't think they allow. But that I thought that was good. And that's what it's got to be. And you want guys to walk in there early. Now, as far as Applewhite goes, and again, this is more probably an age thing that I contemplate things like this more than you guys do. But I think about Applewhite's career and the places he's been. It's to me, it's fascinating. So he was in Laramie, Wyoming from 2003 to 2008. Then he went to Montana State. Where's that, Parker? Where's Montana State?
Bozeman, Montana.
Okay, so he went from Laramie to Bozeman then he went to Monroe, Louisiana. I just can't imagine. I mean, I can't imagine. I think it'd be kind of fun in a way.
From Bobcat Stadium on Kagi Avenue in Bozeman.
You're just going to complete outposts. Yeah. Everywhere he's been has been mostly an outpost. Then he went to Fort Collins, Colorado for 5 years. Then to TCU, which I wouldn't call Fort Worth an outpost.
Not quite.
If you lived in Dallas, you might. But then Lincoln, Nebraska. So I mean, honey, it could be kind of a strange ride here. And that's what he's had. Those places, that's really interesting. So he's had to recruit to some tough places, you know. I mean, you have to recruit to Laramie, Wyoming, and Bozeman and Monroe, Louisiana. It should be a lot easier recruiting to Lincoln.
You'd think.
Assuming they don't go 3-9 every year, right?
Well, yeah. Well, if they go 3-9, he's not going to be recruiting to Lincoln very long, probably.
Good point, Footjoy.
Thanks, Grandpa. You probably need some. Speaking of feet, you probably need like some orthotics in your shoes, don't you? It's probably tough for you. To get around.
Flat feet. I don't know. My feet are doing all right.
Addled, constant pain from their
I'm
joints.
not addled completely at this point.
Have you ever been to any of those places, Sipple?
Yes, Laramie. Yeah, let's not talk about Laramie. We don't need to do that.
Nebraska played at Wyoming.
That's right, at Wyoming.
Before you got here.
Yeah,
right.
right.
Yeah, I went to Laramie as a teen.
Remember that as I said it.
Yeah.
Oh, yes, the teenage trip. I remember this. I've heard this.
We're not doing that though.
We don't need to tell it. Yeah. I thought Bush had probably the two best. Yeah.
What?
I haven't either. I thought Bush had like the two best quotes of the day Monday. You kind of touched on one of them, Sip. One of them was, "Don't confuse attendance with accomplishment," which speaks to don't just show up. You got to accomplish something when you're there. It's something he tells his guys all the time. And he said his three favorite people in the world are his wife, his daughter, and the punt returner. So he said it takes a dude to return punts. And look, we've seen it from Nebraska the last few years when it comes to returning a kick of any type. So I thought that it was a great quote, and B, it kind of tells you what his thought process is. He's kind of putting all this together.
God, I mean, I what I say about punt returners, when Nebraska had Baz, DPE was obviously one. This is before Parker's time. DeMornay, Pearson, L. Was that right before you?
I was here for DPE's senior season.
Okay,
but he wasn't as. I mean, he had a couple of nice returns, but
he was off the broken leg and all that stuff. Yeah.
But see, I compared. You know what I compared? DeMornay, Pearson, L. in his prime, and any good punt returner. I'll just say Johnny Rogers. How about or DeJuan Gross. What they remind me of is when Sosa and McGuire were going head to head in the home run battle. That you would not go to the concession stand at that time. When they were coming to bat, you were in your seat and you were watching. When those guys return punt, when DPE was going good, that's not the time to go to the concession stand.
No, it was magic. Yeah.
Yeah, it was amazing. And it was and punt returns are exciting. I mean, if a guy's good at that, it's a real exciting part of the game. So hopefully.
I think
are we looking at Trey Palmer, Parker? Is that who we're looking at?
Probably. Yeah. He actually he listed some of the guys that were doing it. He said Palmer, Tommy Hill. He said Oliver Martin did a nice job catching the ball last year for the most part, but he needed more help in having room to operate. And then he said he's going to have Brody Belt involved in that as well.
Okay. Trey Palmer, Oliver Martin, Brody Belton. Who was the other one?
Tommy Hill is the guy who he mentioned after Palmer. It's interesting.
Brody Belt.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
There was a lot of talk. Sometimes sort of common themes emerge, right? And one of the things, Frost talked about being energized again on Monday and feeling that energy from new coaches and all of that. One of the things I was thinking about this with Bush, like when you listen to somebody who is clearly very passionate about what they do, you sort of inherently are more interested than you might otherwise be. Like that there's this thing, and it's a skill, I think, probably. And that doesn't mean, people are going to listen to this and they're going to be like Kool-Aid and sunshine pumping and all that. It's not that. I don't know if it's going to work. I don't. But I think when you listen to a guy like Bush, you can understand why he gets players to buy in on special teams, because it's so clear that it matters to him, that it's easier for it to matter to you. Like he told that story. I thought it was funny, like about, the average yards per hop on a punt. If a punt bounces once, it's going to roll 16 to 18 yards on average. And so if you stop a punt on one hop, you probably, saved.
Interesting. Yeah, that's interesting.
Downs. And he said, if you went back there and you're a punt returner only and you fielded a punt on one hop, he's like, after the game, you go down to meet your parents by the Brooke Behringer statue. You say, "Hey, Mom and Dad, did you see me one hop field that punt and save 15 yards? They're probably going to be like, he said, they're probably going to be like, what?
Yeah.
He goes, but that's a big
Great
play.
job.
It matters. And,
Yeah.
It's same sort of thing talking about, his eyes got big when he was talking about Zach Weinmaster rising from the number 7 kickoff team to the number 1 kickoff team. He like talked about it in a meeting. So I don't know. I mean, like I say, I don't know if that means it's all going to work, but clearly a couple of the new guys have made their impact felt in other ways too, but publicly just by their zest for what they do.
Well, think about it. Think about the guys we're talking about as the best recruiters, Bill Bush and Mickey Joseph. What do you think? How do you think those guys would do in a salesman role in this world?
Good.
Real
good.
Yeah, they'd probably be freaky good salesmen. Well, they are. They're good salesmen. They're good recruiters.
Yeah.
And they're very enthusiastic about their individual roles. So it all ties together.
Yeah.
Not everybody. Now, some guys are enthusiastic. They don't have the charisma. Those guys both have a lot of charisma. So they got all of it, So yeah, and I get it. We could sit here, one thing we could do here is literally have Kool-Aid glasses with red Kool-Aid. Maybe
we can do that next week. We'll do that after the spring game.
Yeah.
Well, we can
that's a good idea.
We could sprinkle a little salt in the Kool-Aid if you want to talk about the picture interior defensive line for Nebraska this spring.
Yeah, I mean, sprinkle a little salt in the whole trenches conversation. If you're having a big picture Nebraska conversation, which we don't need to go into because I think we've done this, but I mean, I talk to Parker about it a lot. If you're concerned about Nebraska football, your concern should start in the trenches. Yeah. And that's not a comfortable thing, not in this league. If this was the Pac-12 or the American Athletic Conference or Conference USA, I'll disparage a bunch of conferences here.
Do it.
It wouldn't be such a pressing thing. Big 12, but here you can't be light there. You can't be light, and they look a little light to me.
Yeah. Numbers wise and performance wise. I mean, on offense, it's mostly performance wise. You've got a lot of guys.
They do got guys.
Is clearly hoping that Donovan Raiola, who could have qualified for our most interesting assistant coach list as well, clearly hoping that a new voice sort of like sparks something with some of their young guys. But on defense, it's a numbers conversation as much as anything. I mean, there's plenty of room for Casey Rogers and Ty Robinson to both get better. But you like what them as a starting point. It's just, what do you have after that? Someone tried to sort of put Nash Hutmacher in the top guys category. Mike Dawson really quickly was like, no. He's still young. He's played in a couple games. That's it. So they got a bunch of that's two. They have 2 experienced guys on the defensive line. One of them's not participating this spring because he's hurt, in Casey Rogers.
Baz notices this, I'm sure. We do this in this market. We'll do that with a guy like Nash Hutmacher. Well, he got in a couple games, so he's a proven veteran. We do that with Teddy. Yep. Yeah, we do that with Teddy Prohaska. He's played a game and a half.
We did it with Corcoran. Yeah, we did it with Corcoran.
Yeah, Teddy Prohaska's played a game and a half, and we talk about him like he's a staple guy. I mean,
yeah, I know.
They don't have a lot of that up front.
It's probably
you need to find a bunch of it.
They'll probably be fine. Come on.
Sure. It's going to get better. That's what for each off season of Frost's tenure. I can't tell you how many people I've heard say, well, they'll be better on the offensive line. Why? What prompts you to think that? I mean, maybe they will be, but there's no guarantee.
Well, Baz, is it hoops time?
No, we need to touch on one more thing. Speaking of talent acquisition, Junior Day coming up here soon, this weekend.
That's right.
Yeah, Saturday.
On Saturday over at the stadium. Nebraska's going to have a ton of guys in town as they kind of move forward with the recruiting efforts here. Parker, what's kind of your take on what's going to be happening Saturday over at the stadium?
Yeah, it's they like this time of year even more than in January because the guys are practicing. You know, they're going to have a junior day and they're all going to be at Memorial Stadium, and Nebraska is going to be out on the field practicing, and you get to see, you know, the kids that are attending the junior day get to see what it looks like for real. So, and it's practice number 3, so they'll be not in full pads, but they'll have shoulder pads on and stuff, be able to hit a little bit. There's a bunch of guys they're coming to town. It's a pretty good list. In terms of, you know, they've already got 3 in-state guys in the class in Gunnar Gatula and Sam Sledge, and then Ben Bramer, the tight end from Pierce for 23. They've got the 2 biggest targets, the 2 other guys that they've offered coming to campus this weekend: Malakai Coleman from Lincoln East and Maverick Noonan. Elkhorn South, obviously Danny Noonan's kid, who, by the way, in February picked up an offer from Stanford. You might have heard of it. And then they've got a bunch of guys. They've got actually, I think, 5 offensive linemen from sort of around the Midwest, a couple from St. Louis, one Logan Reichert, who's a top 100 player, according to Rivals, who's from Kansas City, kid from Fort Collins, kid from Lawrence, Kansas, a couple defensive linemen. So it's a good list. They've got a couple of younger guys from in-state, Davon Hall, the wide receiver from Bellevue West, and Tyson Terry, who's a class of 2025. 2025. That means he just finished his freshman year, 53-0 in wrestling, heavyweight champion as a freshman.
Where's this at?
Omaha North.
Oh, that's the Omaha North.
Yeah. He'll be back. So yeah, it's the biggest one and probably the most impressive visitor list they've had so far this year. And they'll have another one, I think, on the 19th, and then so 2 Saturdays from now. And then they're going to actually start having official visitors, maybe depending on the transfer portal, maybe this month, but the first big batch of official visitors will be for the spring game in April. And David Borchers, who's a defensive tackle from Iowa, is coming this weekend for the junior day. Then he's coming back the weekend of the spring game for his official visit. Said Nebraska's recruiting him harder than anybody else. So he said he could take it all the way through his high school season, or he could decide sooner. But I think if you were going to place a bet on the next guy to join the class, I mean, David Borchers is one of the only 23 guys we know with an official visit already on the books. He's coming twice in the next 5 weeks, and he says Nebraska is, recruiting him more than anybody else at this point. So he'd be a good candidate.
So all told, how many people here again? How many players here again this weekend?
Probably a dozen or so that they've offered scholarships to. A handful that they could offer scholarships to, and then a bunch of in-state kids too that are probably further off the rate in terms of like getting a scholarship offer. But they'll have.
And what do you think? Is Malakai Coleman and Maverick Noonan? Are they going to pop pretty quick?
Malakai Coleman told Rivals, national Rivals reporter the other day, that he might go till December. So now you never know. Sometimes kids think that way and then they change. Sometimes they stick to it. But he's definitely, Mickey Joseph, when they made the rounds in January, Mickey Joseph went to Lincoln East and he told Malakai Coleman, he said, the one thing I'll promise you is that nobody in the country will recruit you harder than I'm going to. So, and he's got, obviously, Malakai Coleman, if you don't know his story, he's a great kid. He's doing NIL work to raise money for foster families already. He's just a really neat guy. I wrote today in this preview of this junior day, which you can find at journalstar.com/Huskers. I don't think there's a more important kid in the country than Malakai Coleman for Nebraska at this point.
Really?
He's a freaky athlete. He's 6'5". He could be a receiver or a edge rusher. He's from here and the town loves him already. You don't get athletes like that out of Lincoln very often. And given where they're at and the positions that he potentially projects to in college, and then the kid himself and all that, he's a guy that Nebraska has to find a way to get in the class. And Noonan's really
Sorry.
kind of quiet about his recruitment, so we'll see how that goes. But you'd have to think legacy and all that Nebraska will be tough to beat. But Stanford, I mean, hard to say no to.
Yeah, seriously. Didn't mean to interrupt you there, Parker, but
No, you're good.
Malakai's obviously a really talented kid, but that'd be like a massive PR win for the program as well. Not that you're recruiting for PR wins, but you're going to build a lot of goodwill in the fan base if you're able to land him. So
yeah, and then you watch. He posted something on Twitter the other day of him just like very casually going up and windmill dunking a ball before a basketball game.
Yeah,
I mean,
like he's a freak. Yeah, he's a freak show.
Well, I'll tell you what. Maybe he could play both receiver and pass rusher. Are we at that stage where Nebraska?
And he could maybe on the wing for Fred to come.
Yeah. That's the next article coming from Parker. Can Malakai Coleman play two ways on the football team and also play small forward on the basketball team?
Journalstar.com/Huskers.
There it is.
What if
Look for it coming soon.
A 6'5", 230-pound edge rusher who also plays receiver would be interesting.
9.5 sacks and 66 catches for 1,000 yards.
Averages 8 points and 6 rebounds a game coming off the bench for the basketball team, shooting 64% from the field.
You heard it here first. That's what's going to happen.
Then hit 284 with 6 home runs for baseball over the second half of the baseball season in the spring. Just for good measure. I don't even know if he plays baseball. He probably doesn't, but who knows? Speaking of basketball, should we talk a little hoops?
Do it.
Man.
Should we talk about the hottest basketball team in the country, your Nebraska Cornhuskers?
What the hell is going on?
That's what I was saying the other night, Sipple, when I was watching them play Ohio State. What the hell is going on? Trev Alberts is a genius, first of all, or at least he looks like a genius right now. This is the first time we've talked since the announcement came out last week that Trev announced that Fred Hoiberg will be back next season as Nebraska's coach with a restructured contract, very similar to what Scott Frost did for football. Fred has a quote unquote plan he has presented to Trev. We'll probably see what that plan looks like after the season's over. I think you're going to see it cover a pretty wide range of things, whether it's staff or the way they recruit, the way they build the team, the type of player they recruit. I think it's going to be Fred taking a look at everything, but we won't see those changes for a couple more weeks at least. But yeah, since then they've gone out. They played a really good game against Iowa, lost by 10 at home. Iowa themselves is red hot. Lost that game by 10. Then just went and absolutely obliterated Penn State, like out of nowhere, at a place where they have never played well. Tim Miles never won at Penn State, I don't believe. And
Fred's 2-0 there.
Fred's 2-0 in the Bryce Jordan Center. Scored 93 points against the top scoring defense in the league and a team that plays one of the slowest tempos in the league, if not the slowest. I mean, it's basically impossible to do what Nebraska did against Penn State. And you think, okay, well, that's great. It's Penn State. They're not great. Nebraska got hot once. You know, we all kind of thought they might have a game where they get hot and blow somebody out. They'll come back down to earth against Ohio State. Well, then what do they do against Ohio State? They shoot 56% in the first half. They lead by double digits in the second half, and they end up winning that game by 8 points. And Bryce McGowan has 26, and Verge has a double-double. So, yeah, they're playing good basketball. I think if you asked Fred, he'd probably tell you this is what he thought it would look like before the season, you know, and he talked about the shooting this team was going to have. They're going to be really good offensively, and we hadn't seen it. Well, we've seen it the last 2 games. And look, it doesn't erase what happened the first 28. There's no doubt about that. They've caught a heater right now, and it's just happened to come at this time, and the timing of it's kind of funny, but still, you know, this is, I think, what Fred Hoiberg thought he was going to see. And unfortunately for him, and unfortunately for Nebraska, it took 30 games to get there, essentially. But yeah, it's been fun to watch these guys the last couple of games.
Yeah. Now here's the thing. I don't know how to drill down on it.
Yeah.
But if they I would not be surprised if they keep this going. It would not surprise me the way they're playing. I thought it against Penn State. And I actually have thought it at times during the season. You're right, Bazo. They've been blown out in games. Yeah. They've looked horrible in games, like the down 34 against Northwestern at home. That's pretty bad, right? 42-10 run against Iowa. Iowa goes on a 42-10 run over the last 14 minutes.
I think about that. Those games were 2 weeks ago, basically.
Yeah.
Those games were 2 weeks ago.
Yeah. So it's weird. Like that. I don't know. It's a difficult conversation because if they keep winning, there's going to be part of you says, okay, what where was this and why did it take this long?
Yeah.
Why, Fred, did it take this long for this to happen? Is this just what's going to happen with your teams because you bring in a bunch of guys and throw them together? Is this what I bet Fred would say I know what I would say if I were Fred. Well, what were they, 2-16 when they went on this little heater? 2-16?
1-16.
1-16. I would say we thought that we could get to like 6-11,
Yeah.
Maybe we could get to 7-10 and then go on a little heater, have things come together. That's what I'd say. And you know what? They weren't that far from, weren't that far from that.
We're going to scroll through the schedule right now. And you go back to the Big Ten opener at Indiana. They lost by 13, but they shot like 23% from the field. I mean, they could have won that game had they shot the ball.
That's an okay example. You'll have better ones.
No, there's better ones. Ohio State, they led by 5 with 36 seconds left.
Yeah.
Michigan State, they were right there until the last 3-4 minutes, basically. Illinois at home, lost it by 10. It was fairly competitive. Not a great example. The Indiana game, they lost at home by 7.
Kind of a good example, though. Remember, Trace Jackson Davis went out for the last 7 minutes. They also had their point guard in foul trouble. That was a game that I thought they should have got.
Well, and think about this too. These games we're all talking about, they didn't have Trey McGowan's for any of them either. So let's keep that in mind too. They lose at home by 2 to Rutgers, a game they probably should have won. They led a lot of. So we'll say that's 3 games right there.
Right there.
Michigan, they lead that game by 7 with less than 10 minutes left. They lose by 6. There's 4. Now, the Northwestern loss is bad. Beat Minnesota. They get blown out by Iowa, Maryland, Northwestern again. Iowa had an 11-0 run over like 3 minutes, and that was basically the difference in that game.
You could get them to 3 more. You could convince me 3.
Yeah, you could make a pretty good argument for 3 more. Now all of a sudden you're 4-12, and now you've won 2 more and you're 6-12.
It's more acceptable.
It's more palatable, certainly. It's still not good, but it's more palatable. So yeah, they've had that, and it's the same thing we've talked about all year. They've had games where they're right there, and they've had games where they just haven't finished it. But again, like you get blown out by Northwestern at home, and you basically get blown out by them again. A couple weeks later, you lose by Michigan. Michigan's not any good. You lose to them by 30 plus, by 30 at home.
34.
Yeah, and you get blown out. And now Iowa's playing great basketball, but you lose to them by, like you said, you get up to 42-10 run. Maryland's not great. You lose by them to 16 at home.
God, that was second half.
That Maryland game is sneakily maybe one of the worst games they've played all year. And the final score didn't show it, but it was really bad. So yeah, they've had these performances, these last 2 games especially, but also the ones where they're close. And then you just have these other ones where you go, what in the hell? Like, how does that happen? So yeah, I don't know if there's any way to put a finger on it or get an idea of what's happening other than they've shot it well these last couple games, and Penn State was easy. You didn't have to find a way to finish it off because you're up by so many points. But against Ohio State, you found a way to finish it. You hit your free throws down the stretch. Bryce McGowan's and Alonzo Verge, you got you a couple buckets down the stretch and you finished it off. So sometimes the simplest explanation is the best one, and Nebraska's been really good on offense the last couple.
Yeah, they've been good on offense. Shots have fallen, but I didn't see all of the Ohio State. I didn't see a lot of the Ohio State game, but they played good defense at Penn State.
They did. Yeah, they did.
I mean, they really did.
They started rebounding is what they did. They were down 14-5 early in rebounds. And I think 7 of Ohio State's first 14 rebounds were offensive. And they basically played them even after that. I think after that point, they had 2 fewer rebounds than Ohio State. And Ohio State wasn't making anything. Nebraska was forcing misses, but they were getting rebounds after that. And that's part of playing. We've talked about this before too. That's part of playing defense, is getting a rebound to finish the possession.
Yeah.
So.
Didn't they I think Nebraska only turned it over 4 times, right?
Had 4 turnovers.
They did.
Had 1 in the second half, which is amazing when you think about what they were doing in the second half. They basically Ohio State switched its defense to where they were basically switching every screen. So Nebraska's offense became a deal where they were giving the ball to McGowan's or Verge and getting the switch they wanted and telling those 2 attack the rim. And look, we've seen Verge turn it over this year. We've seen McGowan's turn it over some this year. Those guys took care of it. They made the right decision. They made, excuse me, they ran the offense so good, and they won by 8. They could have won that game by 15 or 20 because they missed 4 in the second half when they're running this offense. Burge gets to the rim, McGowan's kicks it to the rim. They had 4 times where they kicked it to a shooter that was just all alone in the corner. I mean, all alone. And they missed 4 wide open 3-pointers, and they missed a layup. I mean, that's 14 points. No, you're not going to make all of them. But if you make 2 of them and you make a layup, that's 8 more points. You win that game by double digits. So it just tells you how well they executed offensively and defensively, yes. But that's the other part of it. These guys, this was their 3rd game in 5 days. They basically put in a game plan in an hour and a half in a night practice the night before the game and went out and executed it perfectly. And you got 2 wins to show for it.
Yeah.
It's interesting. Go ahead, Sipple.
Oh, well, I was just gonna real quick, Parker, highlight that 4 turnovers in the second half. I do a good job of pointing out all their weaknesses. Having 4 turnovers against the 23rd ranked team in the country on the road in the second half or in the game.
Total. Yeah.
The game,
Yeah, total. That's a remarkably good stat.
Only had 1 in the second half. Yeah.
That is incredible. I mean, that tells you a lot. I mean, that does speak to a level of discipline with the ball, a high level actually. And it speaks to them knowing what they want to do. So where's it been? I don't want to make it negative. I don't want to make a positive and negative, but that is, I'm not going to say that's a freak stat because that's indicative of a lot. And 4 turnovers on the road against a 23rd ranked team that's a remarkable achievement.
It is. And we can be real about it too. Ohio State was shorthanded. And Chris Holtman made some questionable substitutions. At one point, he put in a walk-on at forward for a few minutes, like out of nowhere. They had Jimmy Sotos as their backup point guard, who's better known for his exploits on TikTok than what he does.
Yeah, he's crazy on TikTok.
Yeah. TikTok.
Parker.
TikTok.
TikTok. There it is. Bookface.
All right, what did you want to add?
No. It's just Ohio State. Nebraska gets all the credit in the world for winning the game on the road because they haven't done, and they deserve all the credit. But the reality of it is too, Ohio State was down a couple guys. Coleman did some weird substitution stuff, and Ohio State didn't play its best game on top of that. So that's the other part of it. I don't feel like Nebraska played great in the first half in that game, and they were still up, and it still shot 56%. So it's just, yeah, it's fascinating. Now they get to go play the Big Ten champions on Sunday with the chance to keep them away from an outright Big Ten title. Nebraska somehow is still alive to not be the 14th seed in the Big Ten tournament. They've got to beat Wisconsin, and they need Minnesota to lose to Northwestern on Sunday. They're the 13th seed, which makes my life easier because that means I get the early game on Wednesday next week. But yeah, I mean, they've still got stuff to play for. It's not a lot, but you spoiled Ohio State. You can spoil it for Wisconsin. You can help yourself. You can get a little positive vibe going into this offseason where it looks like you're going to have a lot of change, and you go from there. So yeah, it's fun to see those guys enjoy what they're doing. We haven't seen a whole lot.
Thank you for saying.
And at the end of the day, like, we cover the team, whatever. It's got to be fun for those guys. There's been a lot of times this year it has not been very fun. There's been a lot of times when Derek Walker's come in there after they get beat by 25 or 30 and had to answer questions about it, or Trey McGowan's, or whoever it is, or Alonzo Verge, having to kind of face it, whether it's on social media or whatever. So
they're getting paid, Baz. They're fine.
They're professionals. Yeah, they're professional athletes. Yeah, every single one of them's getting paid. So I'm sure Jackson Cronin's making the same amount of money as Bryce McGowan's is. So
how many questions has Jackson Cronin answered about their 1-16 start this year?
You can probably guess the answer to that. So
the thing I was going to add was actually 2 things. One is very quick. Ohio State went into last weekend in contention for a Big Ten title and then lost to Maryland and Nebraska back to back. So not great for the Buckeyes. The other thing is, it's interesting, Baz. I've seen more of this among hoops fans the last few days. Dangerous. I mean, it's a conversation you can only have to some extent right now because of the extent of not only what could happen in terms of staff and all of that, but also like transfers and college hoops just sort of go hand in hand at this point. But it's been interesting to me because I've watched the last couple of games, in part wondering who's going to be back and what it's going to look like. Like who is this benefiting right now? Benefits everyone in the moment because it's more fun to win than lose. But then I watch a guy like Wilcher, and CJ Wilcher and think like, man, this is probably, assuming he comes back. And I think Fred said recently, he's an important part of the future and all that. Like for a guy like him, I mean, I think it makes a big difference in terms of going into the off season and where he can get better. And he shot the ball so well in Big Ten play. And then you start thinking about like, I mean, honestly, like who else from the group? Maybe Derek Walker, if he wants to use the extra year. Some of the really young guys, maybe. But it's kind of interesting to like, Wilcher has just jumped out to me as a guy who it's like, I'm not saying they're going to build the whole program around him next year, but in terms of the guys who are like on the floor a lot for Nebraska right now, who that they want to have be a big part of the future, and B, realistically might come back. He seems like one of the guys, one of the core guys sort of going
critical.
CJ Wilcher.
Yeah, go ahead.
CJ Wilcher in Big Ten games alone is shooting 43% from 3-point range and has the second most attempts on the team behind Bryce McGowan's in Big Ten play. It's 32 for 74 in Big Ten play. He's shooting over 40% for the season.
What's the overall? How many threes does he have? 50?
He's got here, just a second. Here he's made 32 in Big Ten play. He's made 50 overall, second all time among freshmen at Nebraska. Behind
Joe McCray. Behind Joe McCray.
Yeah, made 80. Joe McCray made 80. Yeah, Joe McCray made 80.
Yeah,
CJ ain't getting there, but
Joe McCray made 80. And then I think he basically ate himself out of the lineup. And
he did. Yes. Yeah. And he feasted from the 3-point line, and then he feasted at the Valentino's buffet.
No, I saw him literally feasting at Dairy Queen one time. I had the grandkids there, and there's Joe McCray sitting in a booth eating a big old sundae. I'm like, Joe, I didn't say it, but I'm thinking, that's the rap on you.
Yeah.
You eat too much.
Joe outgrew his role at Nebraska, literally. So
yeah, he was a great shooter though. He made 83s.
It's insane.
It reminded me of Danville Waldrop. Do you remember Danville Waldrop, Baz?
Yeah. How could you forget?
Yeah, he was an offensive lineman, Parker, back in the day. So when it would have been early 2000s when Jamal Lord was a quarterback, and it was back when we could like talk to players a lot, and we were just kind of shooting the breeze in the hall, one of the hallways over there. And he was telling me where he lived. He lived off Holdridge Street and 27th. I said, "Oh, do you like it over there?" And he goes, "Yeah, I'm walking distance from the Dairy Queen." Big Dan. And he was. There used to be a Dairy Queen on the corner of 27th and Holdridge. I go over there quite a bit. But yeah, Dan was the first thing he said. Yeah, I'm walking distance from the Dairy Queen.
Amazing. So funny.
What if Joe McCray was listening to this podcast and was like 45 minutes or 50 minutes of just like total normalcy, and then suddenly
it's like, we just went off on Joe McCray gorging himself at the Dairy
Queen. Just like 45 minutes in, he would have not been anticipating any Joe McCray slander on the podcast.
No, and nothing. I mean,
I know.
We're heaping some praise. The guy made 83s. Now he was a big dude, though. I mean, I mean, he's a big dude. He was big.
I'm gonna give you a stat right now. This is in Big Ten play. We mentioned CJ Wilcher shooting 43%. Alonzo Verge is shooting 38% from three in Big Ten play. Trey McGowan's limited attempts shooting 39% from three. Kobe Webster shooting 35%. They've got the guys that they thought were going to shoot it have shot it a lot better for them in three.
They just started bad.
I know it's odd, right? Because if all those guys are shooting those percentages in Big Ten play, like how did they start 1-16?
Yeah, I know. It's just amazing.
It's sort of the like when you see it. They shoot the ball pretty well. I mean, it's not like like you said, Baz, they missed a bunch of open threes against Ohio State too, but like see them shoot the ball better and they win a couple games. You're like, oh, it's that easy. But then when you look at it, it's like, you got to rebound, you got to play defense too if you're going to win
Yeah.
regularly in the Big Ten.
The seeds for this have kind of been getting sown for probably the last month and a half. Like you could see kind of some signs, and they didn't always play well, and we've covered that, but you could kind of see some of the signs just from a shooting percentage standpoint. You can see things were turning a little bit. Now the effort wasn't always there, the defense wasn't always there, all that other stuff that matters wasn't always there, but you could see at least there was some signs of life with the offense. And now I think what you've seen is they've kind of matched the defense, they've matched the rebounding to that these last couple of games, and you see the results from it. So I mean that's what it is.
Hey, now if they were playing Wisconsin at home, when's that game? When is that game?
Sunday, 1 p.m.
That game, this fan base is so hungry, that game would be sold out right now.
It would be
if it were at home.
You've got a chance
to
ruin a Big Ten title. No, you've got a chance to ruin an outright Big Ten title for a school and a program that has done you dirty basically since you joined the Big Ten and in a lot of sports. You've got a team that's playing well. You've got the probable freshman of the year probably playing his last home game if this game was at home. The probable freshman of the year in the Big Ten playing probably his last home game in Pinnacle Bank Arena. So yeah, absolutely. It wouldn't be a no-sit Sunday situation, but yeah, it'd be sold out. And it'd be fun. It'd be a lot of fun. So we'll see.
Parker?
Will they win? Will they win Sunday? I mean, probably not. I think KenPom puts like an 11% chance or something like
That's
that.
A bad percentage. That's a bad.
It was 9% against Ohio. It was 9% against Ohio State.
It's a bad percentage. I'm saying 30. I mean, I give them a 30% chance.
I'm fascinated by that because Wisconsin's playing for something, but they also just had this amazing win over Purdue and hit a buzzer
Exactly.
Part of the time. So there's kind of two things at play there, I think. So look, they've got a shot. They just beat number 23 on the road, and they just kicked the crap out of Penn State on the road. That's not an easy thing to do. So yeah, they got a shot. Absolutely.
I don't know. When do they put out betting lines for college games?
It won't be till probably Saturday for that game.
Yeah, I was curious. Most of the time, you see the betting lines, and a lot of times the betting lines in college hoops are right in line with the analytics. Like if you look at the spread on KenPom, the betting line is typically pretty close. I wouldn't be that surprised if this one's a little different for exactly the reason Sipple said. I mean, KenPom might put it at 14, 12, 14 points, something like that, but it doesn't feel like that just because, what we just said. So it'll be, the thing I'm curious about is, I'm not saying they're going to go win the Big Ten tournament or anything like that, but they feel like, and they should feel like they can win Wednesday and Thursday or whatever. And that's sort of like, I'll be curious to see what they look like on the floor in Indy, if they're playing like a team that doesn't want to go home and be done. If they're playing with their hair on fire, Sunday obviously, but more like in Indy, I think that approach will be interesting.
Bigger stage at Indy, and yes, you'd like to beat Wisconsin, like you said, but look, it happened a couple of years ago with Nebraska. We saw it. They took 8 dudes, and we're basically one shot away from making the conference semifinals, playing a walk-on like 30 minutes. So it's not out of the realm of possibility that they could certainly win one game and maybe a couple up there. And I'm not saying it's going to happen. They might go up there and lose Wednesday night and be done. We'll see. But there's at least the possibility that they could win these games. And we weren't saying that 2 weeks ago. We thought the season was going to be over real quick. And now they've at least given you a reason to tune in and stay interested here for the.
But the thing is, it's a legit reason. They won 2 games on the road. I thought Penn State was going to be a bad matchup because Penn State's a tough team and it's on the road. But man, it was not even. Nebraska just shredded.
Wasn't close.
Right. Yeah. So I think if you're an opposing Big Ten coach, you're looking at Nebraska going, okay, they're scary. I hope I can get my guys to understand that that's a scary team right now.
Yeah.
And I don't like the pendulum. It feels like my pendulum's swinging a little too much. I called for Fred to be fired. I still think he should have been. And now I'm saying, oh, now look, they can go on a run. Well, it's sort of a complex discussion.
Yeah, it is. And I'm interested, like, whatever happens these next couple of weeks. Let's just hypothetically say they beat Wisconsin on Sunday and then they go win 2 games in Indianapolis and are competitive in a third, but they lose. They play whoever.
Yeah.
How much does that change what happens in the offseason?
Well, yeah. Does Fred go to Trevin?
That's exactly right.
You know that plan we talked about? Here it is.
Yeah.
It's in shreds because I'm keeping everything the same.
Yeah. Look, it worked the last couple of weeks. Now, Trev's going to come back and say, well, why didn't it work the first 3 months?
What happened to the first 25 games?
Yeah, Trev's going to be exactly right.
What happened to the first 70 games?
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, Trev's going to be right, but you wonder, like, if they just caught and I'm talking like a completely absurd heater, beat Wisconsin, win 2 or 3 in Indy, make this thing just look totally bizarre. Like, does that change anything that happens in the offseason? Probably not, but it maybe plants a seed in somebody's head. So
yeah. Now, the only thing I'd say is I don't even know if it's absurd. I mean, like, they've shown signs the last 3 games. I don't know if it's absurd or not.
Yeah.
I don't know if it'll happen.
Wouldn't that be something? Wouldn't it be something if they were playing for a Big Ten tournament title next Sunday?
Yeah, that'd be something because I'd have to go to where's this in Indy?
Where is it?
Like, what if they're
I have to
40
figure
minutes
out where
away?
the tournament.
Yeah. What if they're 40 minutes away from making the NCAA tournament? What if they're 15? What if they're 15 and 21 or 14 and 21 and playing for a bid to the NCAA tournament? That wouldn't be bizarre.
Perfectly fitting with the way the world's gotten. So yeah, from that standpoint.
Look, it's not going to happen. It's not
Georgetown was 9-12 last year in conference and then ripped off 4 in a row and went. And then I was thinking about this yesterday. That's why I know this. In 2008, Georgia was 4-12 in the SEC. And then they ripped off 4 in a row and made the tournament as a 14 seed. Georgia was a 14 seed.
Wasn't that the year there was a tornado in Georgia and Georgia had to play 2 games in one day at the SEC?
Really?
Oh, yeah.
Both?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
They beat Kentucky in overtime on Saturday, March 15th, 2008. And then they beat Mississippi State by 4 later the same day.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. I remember that. Like, a tornado hit the Georgia Dome and they had to move it to like Georgia Tech's campus.
I shouldn't laugh. It's not really funny, but that's amazing.
It's amazing. Yeah. Like they had to, it was AAU ball. They had to win 2 games in one day and they did it.
Yeah. Let's gloss over baseball.
Let's gloss over baseball today.
Let's gloss over baseball. Baseball is 1-6 after getting swept at TCU last weekend. Again, they are still on the bus heading south. They might be into Texas by now. Probably close.
We've been talking for hours and they're still on the bus.
They're still on the bus. And again, I said at the top of the podcast that the game will test you, as Will Bolt said. You're 1-6. Your pitching, your starting pitching is in shambles. Your coach got tossed after the last game, and he'll have to sit out the first game on Friday after Bolt was arguing a call.
Yeah,
get on the bus.
They got screwed. They got screwed. Now you sit on a bus for 12 hours. You're going to practice tonight. And then you're going to get up and play a doubleheader starting Friday morning at 11. And then you're going to get up Saturday and do the same damn thing against 2 different teams. Then you're going to bus back to Lincoln. And then you're going to get on a bus Tuesday and go down and play Kansas State. So it's fascinating. For being 7 games into the year for baseball, they're in an interesting spot right now. And they've this could kind of serve as a get right weekend for them. The competition they're going to see isn't quite the caliber of what they've seen. And that's not to say they're going to go down there and breeze through this thing by any means, but they're not playing at TCU. They're not playing at Sam Houston. So a chance to maybe build a little momentum. They're going to shake up the starting rotation a little bit. Cody Frank's going to start the first game on Friday, which I really like. That's a guy that's been really solid for them. The Saturday guys are to be determined. We'll see what that looks like. But yeah, it's if you're looking for an early, maybe kind of pivot point in the season, I think you could point to this weekend. They might be able to get all out of this. God, good. Hey, that was a good late sales job there, Mickey Joseph. You're right. This is pretty interesting.
Yeah. I mean, if they go down, look, they should go down there. If they win 3 of them or 4 of them, great. You're back on track. You're 4-7, 5-6. You feel a little better about yourself. You win all 4, you feel great. If you lose, if you go 2-2 or 1-3 again, and your pitching struggles again, oh boy, now you got a problem. And so, yeah, it's sneakily kind of a huge weekend for Nebraska baseball.
Yeah. Good one, Bass.
Is that good glossing over?
Good gloss over.
That was
All
a good
right.
gloss over. That was a
On that
long
note-
one. We went over
Yeah,
an
hour
hour.
plus. Yep.
Hour plus. Thanks for everyone who stuck through it to the end with us. I won't go this long every time, but there's lots to talk about, and we'll do it again next week.